Hello, so this is going to be a cooking video, strangely enough, and it's going to be on how to make sort of flapjacks. And flapjacks are actually really good for sort of a meal ready to eat once they're made, sort of some sort of survival food. Because basically with flapjacks you can make them very very high in calories for something a relatively small size. And you can also have like fats, proteins, simple and complex carbohydrates all in one sort of food. So this is going to be how you can make them. Now there's lots of different ways you can make flapjacks, but one of the important things you might spot there is cashew nut butter. Now cheap smooth peanut butter would work just as well, but I've got some cashew nut butter I want to use up. And basically the reason that's good is because cashew nut butter, like peanut butter, or basically any kind of nut butter, even though I know peanuts are technically a legume, I think, is that nut butters tend to be very high in both calories, proteins and fats. So this means obviously if you're making a flapjack for a survival kind of scenario, it's going to have lots of good nutritious value in it. So you can use either actual real butter or any kind of margarine. I just prefer margarine for this because it's cheaper, and personally I can't find much difference in taste between margarine and butter. There's golden syrup if you want to use that, depending on how you want to do a flapjack. I've got some brown sugar there that can also be used. Most importantly of all, loads of oats. Brilliant thing about oats for survival foods is that you can buy in the UK from supermarkets about a kilo of oats for about £1, so they are very cheap to buy. You could make a hell of a lot of flapjack or porridge of that many oats. You're going to need a baking tray, and then put really like either tin foil and aluminium foil or some sort of greased paper, but kitchen foil is pretty easy to get in bulk and cheap. And then you also are going to need a saucepan and just sort of a ladle for that to stir it all together. So the first step is we're going to put all the ingredients I want to add except for the oats into the saucepan. Once they're all in there, we'll heat it over low heat and stir them together. So obviously what I'm going to do first is just put all the stuff in there. You'll notice in this video I'm not going to use precise measurements because I don't like to work that way. You can kind of visually check the flapjack mix, so that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so step one's complete. I've added all the margarine I'm going to add to the saucepan, and as you can see that's a lot of margarine there, I guess somewhere between 100 and 200 grams. That will obviously all melt down when I put the saucepan, I heat up obviously the stove and start stirring it together, but I'm not going to do that yet. So what I'm going to do now is add some brown sugar and the peanut butter, or the cashew butter in this case, and maybe a little bit of golden syrup as well. So I'll cut back in a moment, you can see everything in the pan. Okay, so now if you look at the mixture, obviously it's not mixed together yet, but you can see the golden syrup in there, the brown sugar, the cashew nut butter, and all of the actual like butter or margarine. So what I'm going to do now is just heat up the stove, the sort of hob, and then I'm going to mix it all together. So I won't film all of this because this will be a boring bit, but basically just going to heat this up gently on a very low gas setting because obviously I don't want to burn the butter. And then what I'm going to do is just start adding the oats once the mixture's actually a proper mixture, so I'll cut back to show you that bit. Now I've just flicked the gas off now while I'm going to stir in the oats, but as you can see that's pretty much all melted together. The cashew nut butter is sometimes a bit lumpier than the other bits, but it looks like it's pretty evenly mixed because you'll notice the butter's not yellow anymore, it's actually gone sort of a dark brown. So what I'm going to do now is just, if I can get the camera a bit more in frame, there we go, is just going to start adding all these oats in. So I've just got like a little sort of protein measuring scoop thing for that. But I'm going to put quite a few of these in, and I'm going to stir it and, add more as needed. As I said, I don't sort of measure out the things precisely. What I like to do is just, do it in a way that makes sense. So what I'm going to do now is obviously just start stirring all this together. And then what you'll see in a moment is all this starts looking sort of a solid colour. The easy way I find of doing it is just literally keep stirring it till all the oats don't look oat coloured anymore and all the oats look like the colour of the stuff you were mixing in the pan. Sometimes you have to press it down a bit and sort of stir it around, but in general that's how it works. It will start solidifying a little bit as you're doing this, but that's normal, just keep stirring it. And what you'll eventually get is sort of obviously a load of oats that are ready to be baked into the flapjack. You can see there's a big mass of them. Probably need to add some more oats because I think they look like there's not enough oats, but anyway, I'll stop the camera in a minute and I'll just adjust this as needed to get the amount of oats I want for the actual flapjack I'm going to bake. So what I'm going to do now is just put all of the oats I've made into this baking tray of the foil. And I'm just going to sort of spread those around and pat it all down to make it sort of into a firm mess. And then we'll be ready to put the flapjack in the oven. Didn't mean to chuck a load on the floor then, so I'll clean that up in a moment. Right, that'll do for getting it out of the pan. So now all I'm just going to do is just sort of squash it down a bit so it's going to turn into a more of an even flapjack type thing when it's actually baked. I'm never really consistent with how much I push it down. It means some bits will be a bit more crumbly than others, but it doesn't really matter. But as you can see, all of the flapjack actually looks flapjack coloured now, because the oats are actually, although it's not been baked yet, the oats are sort of all being pressed together. They're all soaked in the golden syrup and the nut butter and everything else. So what will happen is, in a moment, I'll be ready to put this in the oven. I'm just trying to get that corner there a bit better filled in, but I think I might just leave that corner as it is. Alright, that will do. So, as you can see, we've basically got a tray bake now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the oven on probably gas mark 4. I don't know what that is, an electric oven or whatever, but you can look that up fairly easily. And I'll probably leave that in for about 20 minutes. What I'm going to do is obviously cut back to the video once it's been in the oven for 20 minutes or so and it looks ready to cool. So that was about 15 to 20 minutes in the oven on gas mark 4 and the flapjack is done. So now all I have to do is leave it to cool. I'll probably leave it at least half an hour. Depending on what content you put in the flapjack, what temperature you cook it on, how long you leave it to cool, all affects how crumbly it is. It doesn't really bother me if flapjack's crumbly, but as said, this is a really good kind of survival or outdoor food because you know, the ingredients are pretty cheap other than the cashew butter I used today. You know, and this is very dense in calories. That's, if I ate that entire flapjack, that would be over 3,000 calories easily, just due to the amount of oats and sort of cashew butter and margarine and everything that's gone into it. But you know, even small slices of this would be pretty calorific. And as I said, if you put something like peanut butter in, you're going to get, you know, good fats, good proteins, as well as the simple and complex carbohydrates from the sugar and golden syrup or whatever else, mixed with the oats. So yeah, flapjack is a really good sort of survival food. Obviously, in a completely post sort of apocalyptic scenario, you wouldn't necessarily be able to bake flapjacks like this. So I'm not going to claim that, you know, it's a good survival food for the end of the world. But it is a very good survival food if you, you know, bake a load of it, sort of package it up well enough that it's stored properly. You know, it certainly beats a lot of store-bought flapjacks, which are generally pretty flavourless. And it's, you know, quite a satisfying thing to eat. It's made with cheap ingredients for the most part, and yeah, it's an all-round good sort of food.